If you've ever had someone take advantage of you, use your kindness as weakness, or quietly steal from you thinking they'd never get caught, then this is one of the most satisfying revenge stories you'll hear today. Hit like, subscribe, and let's get into it. I had just bought my new home. It wasn't perfect, far from it. The previous owners were family friends who had left the country in a hurry 3 years ago. Financial problems forced them to sell, and I got the property at a price that honestly felt like a steal. But the house itself? It looked abandoned. Half renovated, no proper gate, the main door secured with nothing more than a rusty padlock. Anyone could walk in, and apparently they had been. On my very first day moving in, I found a stranger's bike parked inside my garage. Inside, not outside the property. Inside. That told me everything I needed to know about how the neighborhood viewed this place. I simply rolled the bike out onto the street and installed a gate the same day. Later that evening, an angry middle-aged man stood outside, banging on my new gate. I watched silently through the window as he fumed for 15 minutes before finally grabbing his bike and leaving. No apology, no explanation, just entitlement. That was my first taste of what living here would be like. Days passed. People slowly realized the abandoned house now had an owner. Blocking my gate stopped once I installed a no parking sign. Peace returned. Or so I thought. One evening, I was taking a shower when something felt off. The water pressure dropped, not slightly, noticeably. At the same time, I heard something outside, a mechanical hum, my neighbor's water pump. Now, this neighbor lived next door in a 3-story house. He occupied the ground floor, while the upper 2 floors were rented out, and he had already made it clear, through the previous owners, that he was furious about the house being sold. He didn't want a new neighbor, especially not one who would reclaim control over what he had quietly enjoyed for 3 years. You see, in our city, water pressure from the public supply isn't strong enough to reach rooftop tanks, so everyone uses electric pumps to pull water into storage tanks above. And when I heard his pump running while my pressure dropped, the pieces began to fall into place. Coincidence? Maybe, but I waited. When his pump turned off, I tested the taps again. Full pressure. That wasn't coincidence. That was theft. Suddenly, past mysteries made sense. Even when this house sat empty for years, the water bills were unusually high. We had blamed leaks, but now it was obvious. At some point, this man had walked into what he thought was an abandoned property, connected his line to mine, and enjoyed free water for 3 years. 3 years. Not because he needed it, because he could. And that's what got to me. Not the money. Water here is cheap. Even with 3 dogs, a car, and gardening, my monthly bill was barely $5. It wasn't about cost. It was about disrespect. About someone deciding my resources were his without asking, without caring. So I had a choice. Confront him, call authorities, ignore it, or teach him a lesson he'd never forget. I chose silence and strategy. In our system, rooftop tanks use a float valve. When water levels drop, the valve signals the pump to start. When the tank fills, the signal stops. But if water never arrives, the pump keeps running and running and running until something breaks. So one evening, when I heard his pump start, I walked to my main supply and turned it off. That's it. No damage, no trespassing, no illegal act. Just a flick of a switch. His pump began pulling, but there was no water to pull. It kept running all night. Around 3 a.m., voices echoed through the night. Confusion, frustration, then shouting. His house had no water and no electricity. The constant dry running of the pump had overloaded his outdated wiring from the 90s. It burned out, and when it did, his tenants lost essential services, water and power. And where I live, landlords are legally responsible for both. The next day, chaos, arguments between tenants and landlord. 2 days later, one tenant moved out immediately. The other filed a formal complaint. Authorities got involved, and because essential utilities were cut, he was fined. He had to refund deposits. He lost rental income and couldn't legally rent again until repairs were made. Repairs he couldn't afford. Days later, he came to my gate. Calm, careful. "Did you turn off your water recently?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah, had a leak. Shut it off until the plumber comes." Silence. He just said, "Oh, okay." But his eyes said everything. Within the week, both tenants were gone. His only income, gone. Fines piling up, repair costs rising, and by Sunday, he was moving out, forced to live with his daughter. All because of a tap. I didn't destroy him. I didn't sabotage anything. I simply stopped giving him what he was never entitled to, and reality did the rest. Sometimes revenge isn't loud. It isn't dramatic. It's quiet, calculated, and perfectly deserved. If this story was satisfying, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, what's the smartest revenge you've ever seen? More stories are coming. If you'd like, I can now turn this into AI voice script format, scene-by-scene video prompts, and viral intro version. Just say next.